Hello again, everybody. This is meteorologist DT with another edition of This Week in Weather. It's Sunday evening, so it's time to do some serious synoptic meteorology. I'm your host, DT from weatherrisk.com. The wife has the flu. The Redskins have crushed the Cowboys. The Eagles are been destroyed. Andy Reid's about to be fired. And there's going to be no significant snowstorm for the North Carolina, Virginia area on January 3rd or 4th. So those are the headlines. Not all of it's meteorological related, but what the hell. It's beginning of the new year, or will be shortly. Let's get right to it, see what's going on. It's, almost 11 o'clock here in the east. And a lot to talk about here, so we'll start out by taking a look at our first image. And this very first image actually has to do with the rainfall amounts of precipitation, which shows up here on the European model. For the period from January 1st to January 2nd. Now you look at this, you say to yourself, well, that's a pretty good amount of precip, because I mean you can see clearly here if you look at the data, you see this dark, the blue in here, that corresponds to this, in here like 3/4 of an inch. The problem is, of course, is that a lot of that is going to be rain. It's not going to be snow, and we'll see that. We'll take a look here in a minute with the change in the position there. And this image here shows us the temperatures at during the time of the precipitation. So this is from 7 o'clock evening on January 1st till 1 o'clock in the morning on January 2nd. Now you see the 32-degree line here and 35-degree line. All that's north of the precip. So this is all essentially rain for the most part, with the cold air coming southward. But will it get here in time? Maybe. So we'll see. And then finally, by 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. on the morning of January 2nd, as everyone goes back to work, we can see some cold air getting in here a little bit, 35 degrees getting south of Richmond, and some lingering precip, but most of the precip is gone this way at this point. Now, this was just the original cold front, so this is, this was just one possibility that there might be some overrunning precipitation with the cold front on January 1st going into the 2nd, and if the cold air gets in here fast enough. Then the front was supposed to stall right along here, and another area of low pressure develop on it. Maybe we get a second storm. So let's take a look what happens. And it will go, is there going to be an event here for January 2nd or 3rd or 4th? And the answer is probably, it's going to be, no, it doesn't look that way. So I'll know a lot more tomorrow for certain, but that's what it looks like. Now this is the this is the GFS ensemble here from Sunday, the 12Z run, and as we can see right in here, this covers a period from January 1st and January 2nd. You can see into here, and it covers it, and you can see decent precipitation here and here. But again, the problem is the cold air is very slowly getting southward, so a lot of this is probably rain in here. And then if we go past it, there's not much going on. What happens is the whole front just gets pushed off the coast, and there's no storm. Well, why not? I thought there might be a storm. What's changed in the atmosphere? Well, let's take a look and see. This was from the one from last Thursday, the video I did last Thursday, and I believe it was December 28th, that video. And in this image here, I pointed out that this feature was going to act as a kicker and force this one southeastward. You see? That's what I thought was going to happen. And then there you can see the system kicking it out. But instead, as we'll take a look-see, what happens is that this feature, now this is the current European here, as you can see right in here. This is the European, valid for January 4th. This is day 5, okay? This is day 5. That feature is up in here. It's not coming down here to kick this one east. Instead of coming this way, it went here. That's totally different from what the model data was showing earlier. So that changed the whole thing. The energy in the southwest just stays there and doesn't come out, and there's no big storm. But also, we can also see some other features, and see this big white area up in here. This is the polar vortex up in here, and it's very intense and it's huge. You can see how low the numbers are. This purple stuff is, look at this way down here, 476 decameters. Very, very deep area of super low pressure right up here in Baffin Island, and that's where all the severe cold is locked up in here. And we'll talk about that in a minute. This is the GFS model from day 5, and again, if you recall, the piece of energy that was supposed to come down this way and then kick this thing here. Instead, what's happened? There it is. It's gone this way. Totally different from what the data was showing a few days ago. That's the change, and that's why there's going to be no storm off the southeast on January 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. It was a long shot anyway, but it was worth a possibility. Now clearly it's not going to happen. That's pretty much what it looks like to me. Now let's take a look at the maps here along a larger scale. This is now day 5 again, so we can see right in here. Right in here, this is day 5 for January 4th, right? And we see two features. We see the polar vortex. One is here, and the other one is here. This is very, very intense. Now, when you've got something with lots of lines around it like that, that's telling you something about the atmosphere. That this is an incredibly low area of pressure in the jet stream, the 500 millibars, and it has a lot of cold air around it. Just like on the surface, when you see lots of lines, you have lots of wind. Same thing here. When you have a lot of lines, you have a lot of wind up there. And that means all the severe Arctic air is trapped up in there. Now, sure, we do have a little bit of a flow this way, but it's not really plunging southward. So we have two polar vortexes, one over Japan and Siberia and eastern Siberia, and the other one here over far northeastern Canada. If we change into the next one, we go to day 10, same sort of thing, not much has changed. Look how intense this thing is. This is, believe it or not, let's take a look, see, that is 480 decameters. That is incredibly low pressure at the jet stream level of 500 millibars. This is a monster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines around it. Is that right? That's like a nuclear bomb zone. And this thing is at the top of Hudson's Bay. It's way up there, Baffin Island. And that's not a good position for getting big cold in the eastern United States, or even, and it also is actually quite hostile to the development of snowstorms along the East Coast, for that matter, or winter weather, because all the cold air is up in there. Also, when you have these lines going like this, like this, like this, like this, you can't get phasing. You can't have with the jet stream, the northern branch of the jet stream dropping into the southern jet stream, because they're all wrapped around this monster system sitting up there north of Hudson's Bay. So there's a lot of reasons why seeing a vortex like this is a very bad sign if those who like winter weather in the eastern United States. And let's take a look at that cold air for a second. Look at this stuff. Wow! But it's way up there at northern Hudson's Bay. And what's over Kentucky? What's over Virginia? What's over Iowa? Very mild conditions. Look at this. See this green stuff? This is 50s at the surface. And look at the high here. High off the coast, sending in warm air. All the cold air is up in here. They ain't coming south. They ain't, as long as that is the case, that cold air is staying up there. It's just that simple. And we take a look at indices. Here's the Arctic Oscillation. Well, what are we noticing? It's neutral here, but then by January 2nd, look, it's way up there. See that? Way up there by January 2nd. That's positive territory. And we have a positive Arctic Oscillation. That means the cold air is trapped up there in Canada. Next indice. Here's the NAO, North Atlantic Oscillation. What do we see again? Here's the neutral line. It's neutral. Just very close to being neutral. Not impressive at all. And the next one, here's the EPO, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. Now, what does this mean? Well, this is essentially, this indice refers to Alaska. Okay? And when you have a big low in Alaska, you can't get a ridge on the west coast. So this is neutral. So there's not really a low or a ridge in Alaska. It's neutral right now. And then this is the P&A. Now there's a bit of a ridge here, as you can see, right in here, a bit of a ridge. Look what happens. Plunges southward. Why? Because here comes the Pacific Jet. So by January 11th, we've got a Pacific Jet coming back in. When you have a Pacific Jet with that huge vortex to the north like that and the Arctic Oscillation positive, that is not a cold pattern for January. Now, I know there was a lot of data which was talking about January being cold, including me. I'm not taking this out of my own hide here, but it doesn't look that way. Now, this is the comparison between the European model here on the left, as you can see. For European, and this is the GFS over here. And you can see both of these features. See this feature here? Polar vortex, way up there north of Hudson's Bay. When the vortex is up like this, look at the lines around it. See the lines around this thing? There's Greenland, so you can't get a negative NAO. You have to get a positive NAO. You have to. Both the GFS and the European are showing that. And the European's got kind of a neutral P&A. The GFS has a little bit of a P&A weak there, not a big deal. But this is not a cold pattern at all. No siree, Bob. And this takes us into January, I believe January 10th or 11th. Yes. Now, this is the CFS, the climate forecast model. So this goes back from December 3rd. And this is the forecast for January as of December 3rd. It was pretty mild, as you can see. Pretty mild, as you can see right there. Now, as this went along, by December 14th, we started seeing much colder temperatures. Look at this cold air up in here. Wow. Okay. Here is the December 14th, valid again for all of January. And it turned much colder. I mean, there's some big difference between this and this. This and this. Right? Okay. Now, here's a new one as of, again, for December 30th. For January, as you can see. Now we're getting some warming up in here. So this might be a ridge. And then the cold air is down in here. That's, not too bad. Also, you can see really warm temperatures here. That might be indicative of a negative NAO. It might be, but the problem is I'm not sure if that's what's happening here. And the CFS, it seems to be, I don't understand how it's getting that solution. Now, if we look at December 15th, what the model was showing here back in December, this is the jet stream pattern. It was showing a big ridge here over the central North Atlantic and the trough on the west coast. You see that? And a ridge over the southeast. That wasn't a particularly cold pattern. But by the end of the month now, here on December 30th, now this is December 30th here. We can call this one up. Here's December 30th right in here. Again, for January, now we're saying something different. Now look, the ridge is on the west coast. Now we have a PNA, according to the CFS. Okay, but lower Greenland, there's no. This is, what is this? This is nothing. That's not a negative NAO at all. That's maybe by Iceland. That might be an east-based negative NAO, but that doesn't do anything. So what we have here is you've got the jet stream doing this. The vortex is way up here in Canada, and all the cold air is going across the Great Lakes in New England. It's not getting into the middle portion of the country. And that's one of the reasons why the model's backing off the intense cold. Now, this is the CFS for week 1. Now, you can see, take a look at the time frame here. Okay, this is January 5th, 5th through the 9th. This is January 7th to 13th for temperatures. And it's really cold up in here. We see that's really cold, and here's the super warm up in here. But what's happening is the cold beginning to weaken now a little bit in week 2 here. And as we go into the upper air maps, what this is showing is, well, this here is, let's make sure you can see this. This is North America. You can see North America here and here, right? And now this is week 1. This is December 30th to January 5th. Well, we have definitely have a positive Arctic oscillation here, no doubt about that. You can see for all the negative heights here. We have a PNA here on the west coast, and we have a positive NAO, again below normal heights here, so that's positive NAO. In week 2, which is right here, for January 6th to the 12th, same sort of thing. Positive NAO, positive Arctic oscillation. That's not a good sign for a cold pattern at all. Now this is week 3 and week 4. Look at the warming developing here. This is huge changes from what this is showing. Warming here, warming in here. Big changes. And why? Well, here's week 3 and week 4. Let me show you what this looks like here for week 3. Here's your ridge on the west coast, and you've got this. Yee! That's pretty good if you're in the Midwest. That's not great on the East Coast. And in week 4, you've got this. Yee! That's not a good pattern.